Thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Yeah.
um, okay, so for this tea talk, of course, I want to start by the simple questions, even if it's not always a simple answer. Um,
Mhm.
where are you from?
I'm from Antwerp, which is in Belgium. I was born in Belgium, which makes me Belgian. But my parents are from Morocco, and they came in the 60s from Morocco to Belgium um, to build a better life and a future for their children. So that's me.
Okay. I saw that you wrote a monologue, correct me if I'm wrong,
Mhm.
that is called De Meisje,
Mhm.
which means the girl. And I was watching an interview um, because Dutch is not my first language.
Mhm.
So when I read the Meisje,
Mhm.
I was like, isn't that wrong? And I looked it up
Mhm.
because just to give context, in Dutch you have het and de. That
Mhm.
is like the article, like the table, the chair. And usually Meisje is het. So then
Mhm.
I looked it up and I was like, het. And when I realized that it's wrong, it immediately clicked with me the reason why it's called the mashe, because I feel like it's a word that it's very much used, and a lot of people just say it wrong.
Mhm.
And to me, it was so relatable, like instantly. And then I don't know if it's right. Like the mashe is about your life, or what is it about exactly?
The Mesh is my life story. It's the story of when I left home when I was 20 and went back after 9 years. So I tell that part, but I also tell the part of my childhood and my puberty. And then, of course, going back and having a conversation with my father.
Oh, okay. So did you grow up? You grew up in Antwerp, right?
Yes.
And while growing up, to which community did you relate the most? Like, yeah.
Well, actually, I'm a chameleon,
Hmm.
so I can relate to many communities, and I think that's also my strength because as a kid I didn't felt as if I belonged to a community, but of course because those communities were part of me, which made me part of their community. Um, so both actually, both Moroccan and Flemish community, because at home it was Moroccan and then in school it was Flemish. So always those two. And then of course with growing up, you learn other communities and you try to adapt again to be part of that community. So in one way, it's good to be chameleon if
Yeah.
you open up to people and if you get to know people. But at the end, it can also be a warning that you always try to fit in a certain community because after a while, sometimes communities can get toxic.
Yeah. Do you think that there is the need of a community, or should everybody find their community? Because sometimes we are just very fluid in our identity. So sometimes there is not really the exact community. So do you give
Well,
importance to the sense of community?
I think there's only one community, and it's the human community. But I think we want to create other smaller communities with people that have a specific similar parts like us, like our religion or our background or our sexuality.
Hmm.
Um, but if a community is built and then is defined by social um, sociale controle, um, social
Uh,
investigation,
okay.
where people in the community um, question who you are because of other parts of your identity, then a community for me isn't really interesting. I think a community can be very powerful if everyone can hold their own individuality and what makes them special. But I still have to find that community.
I also feel like every community, I mean, society has some rules, so each and every community also have some kind of rules. or I don't know if you can really call them rules, but just,
No, true.
yeah. So then when you want to belong to that community, you kind of have to tick each box of that community, but that's not always the case. So then
Mhm.
I feel like there are a lot of people that want to relate to some groups, but they just don't feel accepted.
Mhm. In my community, my Moroccan community, because of the fact that I was gay, I felt as if I couldn't be part of that community.
Mm-hmm.
And the same sometimes with LGBT community. Some, if you put it in smaller communities, the homosexual community can also be very negative towards trans people or lesbian women. So for me, the set of rules that we have in society and that go in communities, I think that's also, we have to unlearn these set of rules, because these set of rules are based on bias and are based on not accepting all parts of humanity, which is people with a different sexuality, people with different skin color, people with different everything. People are just different. I think if a community can start with those set of rules instead of the set of rules where you put judgment onto people.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I think to build that community, we still have quite some work to build that kind of community.
Yeah, indeed. So it would be your ideal world. Do you see it as one big community where everybody is just their own? So just the whole world is one community? Or
I,
every community is more split in specific communities?
well, I think it's even scientifically, you can't have communities bigger than 100 people.
Mm-hmm.
um, because if it's a community based on caring for each other and making sure that everyone is fed and loved and helped, and that they will always have emotional support around you. But I think that's a very romantic way of looking at a community.
Mm-hmm.
I think in a bigger scale, of course, the world can be one community, but then everyone really has to start loving themselves a bit more.
Yeah.
Because I think the reason why certain communities don't accept certain people in their community is because they just have problems with parts in themselves and they project it onto this other person. So more self-love.
I feel like you are a very strong person in your individuality, just in your being, you know who you are. And was that a process? Because belonging to different worlds, of course, brings different sets of problems or insecurities. Did you have that process, or did you always know, like, okay, I am Moroccan and I am Belgian and I
No,
am.
no. Thing is, because I was this chameleon, at a certain point in my life, I forced myself to be alone
Mm,
and to build a nest inside myself, which is very similar to a community, because I needed to know why I wanted to be part of a community, where before I would always just wanted to be part of something, and I would sacrifice my own identity to be part of that community. So I
mhm,
really had to unlearn that, to get validation from other people, to get love from other people. So that was a process of being alone a lot and going through my childhood trauma and crying and speaking to people about it, but also being on myself, having fun on myself, um, loving myself by being my own friend.
mhm.
And now it's much easier to look at other communities and be part of those communities, but with still having actually an individual take on it, because at the end we all came alone and we will all leave this earth alone. So
Was there someone that helped you in this journey, or was it really just your self improvement, or was it your environment?
I think it was more my higher self,
Mm-hmm.
like not my physical self, but I think after a while, because I was raised very religious, and after I left home, I became atheist, or I told myself I was atheist, but I think I never really believed I was atheist. And I also wasn't sure if God existed or if something bigger than me existed. But after, in that moment of being alone a lot and feeling desperation and feeling lonely,
Mm-hmm.
I just had a lot of questions, and I started writing down my questions and just projecting them while I was sitting alone at home, and I would get guidance. And it took me some while to believe that, because often I think your mind is maybe tricking you, but after a while, for me it also worked as a placebo.
Mm-hmm.
So it made me also feel better to believe that those were signs. And little by little, after a while, now I know it's not a placebo. Now I really just know that no, this is just a higher self guiding me, because I have days that I feel little, but I know I'm here because I really have to be the vessel of certain topics which are still very, 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 very taboo.
I guess now you self improved like with the years. Do you feel like there is more judgment in the American community or in the Belgian community, or in both?
I think in both, but I think in the Moroccan community, people will not hide
Mm.
their judgment, um, because often in Western communities, they say it's not judgment, but that it's their rational point of view. While that's also judgment. It's just wrapped up in a it's still judgment. It's
Mhm.
still thinking and saying something about a person without really knowing the person or taking the time to get to know the person. um, so I think we're just programmed also that way, to judge and to question the other instead of first questioning ourselves.
Mhm.
And I do have, because it's true, I'm a strong person, but I also people can also hurt me, because often it's not that. I think because often people see strong people and think they can take a dent, like they can have quite some resistance or something, but at the end it's still, I still have also a small heart, and it could also be broken. So that's
Yeah,
mm.
of course. How do you see it today? In what community do you exist the most? In the American one or in the Belgian one, or is it just even?
It's really it's funny to every community,
Mm-hmm.
because I was a chameleon by nature to fit in, and then I taught myself to,
Yeah.
okay, but why do I fit in? And now I fit in because I just love human beings, and I will send out good energy to every community if I will interact with them, and I can only hope they will send that energy back. If they don't, it says nothing about those people in that community. It's one person who maybe had a bad day and had a bad moment. So I think I really feel very connected to just a human community, because we're really, all these labels are really, are just walls that stand between us, because we're really just exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
We're a bag of bones with flesh, with a lot of emotions.
Do you feel like there is somewhere a little need for labels, or would you just wipe them all off?
No, I think there is a need for labels because our brains just work that way,
Yeah.
or we designed them to work that way. But I don't think that labels define a being. And
Yeah.
also, I put myself in boxes, but other people can't put me in boxes because that's their box. Because my box, what homosexuality is, looks completely different than your box, what sexuality or
Mm.
homosexuality looks like. So boxes, yes, but don't put people in boxes. That's
I think that's very important to give your labels to people because everybody sees each label in a different way. So it's like taking power of your own narrative and be
mm,
like, I want to be seen like this and I want you to use this label because of this reason, and not people just assuming stuff and just sticking their label to you. I
mm,
think that's very important.
mm,
um, I wanted, like, because we were talking about um, how Belgians or just more Western societies are like, yeah, I'm just giving my opinion, which is still judgment. Um, I feel like there are a lot of values that exist in both cultures. Like, for example, now Mediterranean and Belgian cultures, but they just have like they're wrapped in different words. For example, I grew up in Italy, and in Italy there is a lot of sense of machismo.
mm,
So all the guys are very strong and very tough. But in Italy, there is also between men there is this very strong brotherhood, and men love each other a lot, and they're not afraid to show their love to each other. And like it's kind of two opposite things. And then here in Belgium, maybe the machismo is not that obvious, but it exists here too. It's just shown in a different way,
mm,
while then also the brotherhood is shown in a different way.
mm.
So do you agree with then the Moroccan side and the Belgian side in your point of view?
Yeah, absolutely. I think thing is, at the end, we all the world where we live in is not that big, so
Mm-hmm.
we, at the end, human behavior, how we act as humans, is very similar. But some people have a different way of approaching that. So it's very similar. I think, for example, if it comes to homosexuality, a lot of people in the West will not give an opinion about it, but secretly inside of them, they
Yeah.
don't agree with homosexuality. Where Moroccan people who don't agree with homosexuality, they will tell you, I don't agree with homosexuality, because that's what I think. So the difference is also the one verbalizes it and the other one is also thinking it,
Mm-hmm.
but is not honest about it. So in the end, maybe sometimes even then who is actually more honest, because at
Yeah.
least that person tells me in my face, I don't like homosexuals.
Yeah. So then, existing in multiple worlds, do you feel like you change your mindset, or not really change your mindsets, but do you um, adjust your mindsets depending on where you are, or do you just have one mindset and you always live by that?
No, I changed my mindset because to get respect, you have to give respect.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't expect of every community where I go that they have to accept me exactly as I am, because nobody has to accept me. I have to accept myself. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's my duty as a human being, if I go somewhere where a certain community don't likes that I show my tattoos, then I will cover my tattoos, because if that will make the conversation easier and make everyone feel on the same level of respect. So I think sometimes that's also a very Western view in believing that this acceptance comes with a exuberant freedom where you can just, I can completely be free and be who I want, and everyone has to accept that around me. I think that's a very outer experience of freedom and acceptance, I think.
Yes, yeah, indeed, because again, like everybody views or every society views values in different ways. So
Yeah.
what's very respectful for one person could be the exact opposite to the other one. So
Yeah,
it's
and also I think it's also not listening to each other, because if the one person says, I want everyone to accept me, and the other says, but I also want everyone to accept me, and I find disrespectful that you're dressed this way, then let's talk about that instead of just the what we often get is that the more free person gets power over the person who is less free, while it's not about freedom, it's really about other values like respect and communication. So
yeah, yeah, of course, but I think sometimes people just find it very difficult to understand that these values are seen in a different way by other people because these usually are core values that we get from childhood. So, if for
the
me
thing is, we
respect is
don't,
that.
yeah, but we don't get them the right way, I
Hmm.
think. Because, for example, I was taught that respect is something very bottom up, that you really respect everyone who is like bigger than you and more important than you,
Hmm.
while there is no more important, you just respect everyone. And because often I think our values are very different, that's the problem. I think we, because every value actually is not taken, is given.
Hmm.
Like, if I can't accept respect if I don't give respect first. I can't accept someone else to be communicative if I am someone who is very silent. And you can't be all of those things, but I think we all just have to really unlearn our parents their values and just learn basic human values, all because a lot of people don't know what basic human values are.
Of course, I think sometimes it's just very difficult to find a common ground, especially when there is like a culture clash uh, in the middle. It's just very difficult to communicate and to be like, we are thinking the same thing, we just show it in different ways. So maybe with communication, we can come to, a middle point. But I feel like that conversation is sometimes difficult.
Yeah, but also sometimes to admit that you just don't get along,
Hmm.
because it's it's again romanticized that we should all get along, because I think sometimes you also just don't have the same interest. And but besides that, you can still say hello to someone in respect and let them be without disrespecting them.
Hmm.
I think that's where a lot of people disrespect each other, because they also feel the need to point that person out in what he or she is like. So
Hmm. Yeah. Was it difficult to navigate religion in this whole process, or how did you work with it? And do you feel pressure from any community to be in a certain way or to believe in something?
well, I have to say, if I would never had the knowledge that my religion was against homosexuality,
Hmm.
I wouldn't have had a problem with religion, because at the end it's just, it's a set of rules, and it's community, and it's a way of living. um, and of course there are parts in religion which are very toxic, but if you don't take that in account and just keep it to the rituals and building a relationship with God and with yourself and being a good person, then religion can be a very good and powerful thing. um, but because of me knowing that me being gay was not good in my religion, yeah, I didn't have a good relationship with religion because I always thought like I am something that my religion is against. And later in life, I learned that my religion is my interpretation.
Hmm.
Nobody can tell me how my relationship is with God.
Yeah. What is your view on Muslim community? Like, do you think Muslim is the right word to describe the whole community, or how would
No,
you
no,
word
not
it?
at all. No. Because like, Muslim people come from North Africa to Southeast Asia, so it's
Hmm.
you can't really speak about one Muslim community, but we do it because yeah, in our countries, in every country, you have a Muslim community. But that's why again, communities can also be very tricky because you speak about people as if they all know each other and all come together,
Hmm.
while that's not true. It's just a very small part of those kind of people.
Do you have any projects or maybe not events because of Corona,
Mhm.
but anything that you're doing right now that you want to promote or plug?
Well, my talk show will be released November 11th
Hmm.
on Arenberg. It's called Het Nieuwe Normaal. So that's very exciting because we produce it with our production house together with Arenberg. So it's going to be very nice to release that into the world.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Congratulations in advance.
thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for this talk. I really
No, you're
appreciate it.
welcome. You're welcome. Have a nice evening.
Thanks. You too.
Bye.
Bye.